The truth is, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has regrets. The beauty of that truth is that we can choose to learn from those mistakes, guide others, and confess the necessary but somewhat hard to swallow pill. We're not perfect. But we don't have to be perfect to provide value and find success. Join us as we walk through some of the leadership confessions that led to valuable lessons learned and strategies to avoid common pitfalls. Lewis, let's kick off there.
Sure. I'm going to talk about an example from earlier in my career. And this goes back to when RevOps was really starting to take shape as a discipline. So no one really knew what it was. It could be everything, it could be nothing. But the task was to combine marketing, sales, and customer success operations into a single organization and form revenue operations. At the time, honestly, I didn't know what that meant. I come up from sales operations. I knew that world. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of sales operations plus. So I got to learn what I need to know about marketing, which I already kind of had a good handle on. And then brand new to me was customer success and trying to figure out what they needed and what that wanted and what that last mile of the journey for the customer actually represented. I didn't understand the scope of it. So my natural instincts was, let me focus in on sales. Revenue equals sales equals revenue. As long as I'm doing well there, it's going to be fine. What happened was I managed to piss off both marketing and customer success in doing that. The sales team was really happy with me, but everyone else was angry. What I regret doing at the initial stage when we had just brought marketing and sales together was being more of a bridger and really tried to work to understand both marketing's needs and sales needs and try to at least have one cohesive picture of what revenue represented there. I didn't go there. I had marketing and sales leaders who utterly hated each other, and trying to get in between them and trying to just even talk about basic things was challenging enough, let alone starting to talk about things like this. I want you to trust me, trust my team, give me resources, invest in this revenue operations concept, and let us grow and build. I tried that approach and I was ripped apart by both sales and marketing. So I'm like, you know what? If we're not here as an organization, I'm not going to try to fight this. So what I did instead is, foolishly, I managed marketing separately, sales separately, and then try to reconcile and try to find value in between the two. What wound up really happening was I wasn't delivering anything to anybody. It was basically an extension of marketing, an extension of sales ops, and a combination of teams really made no sense. Then it was completely ignoring customer support and customer success, which really caused a lot of internal issues and just didn't get to that consolidated revenue operations approach. So looking back, I screwed up. And I should have done this better. And that was a lesson I had carried with me. And every organization that I've gone into since, my first remit is, okay, I need to understand all three equally. I need to figure out what's common across those agendas, what's unique. And then also with my resources, try to figure out what can we actually accomplish in the revenue operations space and take a really strong position on what our process needs to be as we think about one integrated end-to-end go-to-market process. Think about what our tooling strategy needs to be, and then think about what our data and data collection and reporting strategy needs to be. My failure to do that initially, that cost us time, that cost us revenue, that cost us margin, that cost us subpar investments in resources and technology. It could have helped both of those organizations grow so much more quickly.
That's awesome. You learn from it, and there's some inspiration behind there of getting better and everything there. So Sandy, I know you got some juicy for me.
I don't know. Louis had a lot of notes on his regrets. So, so I try not to think of it as regrets because I try to think of it as learning opportunities. Because I think, as Louis pointed out, you have to learn from your mistakes, and I've made a ton of them. Definitely made a ton of mistakes. I can think of one really big learning opportunity. So it was a couple of years ago, we had an enablement tool. I won't name any names. And it was set up pretty well, right? And adoption was okay, but there was some functionality I really wanted, just in terms of like deal collaboration and things like that. And this particular tool didn't have it yet. And they kept saying, it's on our roadmap. It's on our roadmap. We've all heard this, and most of us have sold software, so we also know that we're selling that too, right? So we get it. So I kind of lost faith that this functionality would come, and I was pretty hell-bent on getting it. So I vetted some other vendors and collaborated, had a requirements document, checked all the boxes, like every single box, security requirement, and all this functionality that I wanted. And I was like, this is going to solve our problem. So renewal was coming up on the one tool, so we gave notice, was able to negotiate even a buyout for the end of the contract so we could migrate over and everything. So everything was just great. I'm just super excited about this. And it turned out once we started getting into the implementations process, a lot of these promises were really just like wireframes on slides and not stuff that was actually built. So when we got down and really dug into the implementations, it became really like a giant cluster. And it was like they had to still do development for us. And it's like we were their test dummy. And it was like, it was pretty much a disaster. And meanwhile, the other tool actually started putting in the changes that I've been waiting for. And we were so excited about the deal and everything. We actually signed a 2-year contract. So after about 6 months of trying to make this thing work, we just gave it up and went back to Google Drives because that ended up being more functional from an enablement standpoint. And I mean, for me, the massive lesson learned there is when you're vetting these tools, especially if you're wanting to make a switch, the grass isn't always greener, right? But get into those technical demos because I mean, we did everything right. We collaborated, checked all the boxes on the requirements, believed in the dream they were selling us. And so now I really, if I am going to switch a tool or bring on a new tool, I really dive into, first of all, those box checks are just table stakes, right? So you have your deal breakers, but really diving into what it is that they are actually delivering. Technical demos, get in our sandbox, show us how it's going to integrate. You say it's integrated. What does that actually mean? How does that actually look in my instance? How am I going to, and what is this process going to be? And I think you really have to push back because everybody will give you an answer. Oh yeah, sure, we can do that. We can demo that. We can integrate that and all these things. So that was a huge lesson is pushing back and really diving into those details. Just because checks a box on a list and you do your due diligence doesn't mean it's actually going to pan out that way.
Right. That's so true. And it's like, it's a nightmare when you get to that point. You're like, I can see your face the day you realize that. And you're like, how am I going to do this?
I know. And then it's like also politically, because you have to fight to move to this, right? Like you guys know, you have to, if you want to move from one tool to another, there's always somebody that's hell bent about not doing it, right? And so you have to do a lot of internal selling. So I had a lot of egg on my face, like this thing, it was really a disaster. And I was like, look, I'm just going to own it. Like we thought we did everything right, but we didn't do enough to do it, to make that big move.
Right. Awesome.
I also have a tool nightmare story, still haunts me to this day. And it was 10 years ago. I think it was 2014. Early years of ABM tools, right? If you guys remember, it was called Engagio. It was then acquired by Demandbase. I love the tool. We were one of the first, I think, 50 customers. And the tool was amazing. Anyways, we just implemented it, and I had to travel overseas. I was on vacation somewhere. My team was taking care of the implementation, and we rolled it out right before I left. Everything looked good. I wake up one day, 12-hour difference, to gazillion text messages from everyone, including my CMO, my BDRs, my AEs, and everything. They cannot see their leads. Their leads have disappeared from Salesforce. I'm like, no. How could that happen, right? Like user error, most likely. So I go into Salesforce and I don't see their leads. I log in, I log out as me, as them, as everyone else. I cannot see their leads. And then I'm like starting to remember that we implemented this new tool. It's ABM, and they're all about accounts, and they're all about matching leads to the accounts. So, let me go check that one out. Like, what's going on there? Did they match all leads to accounts, and all of these leads are now sitting under like one catch-all account, or what happened, right? So I go and investigate. And then I see this toggle in Engagio. It was removed right after that. So we were a guinea pig. But so right after, there was just like a button in Engagio that says convert all. And someone clicked that button. And what happened overnight, more than 400,000 leads got converted.
400,000.
Converted with a push of a button and matched to, of course, wrong accounts. And moreover, I think it worked on create. So every new lead that was coming in was auto-converted and matched to some God knows what account. So it was like early morning, I'm overseas, my team is freaking out, the entire company is freaking out. I'm sitting there in a hotel room crying, having a meltdown because I don't know, like, should I go back immediately, get on the first, like, what do you do from there? You know, they can't work, you're hearing from your C-level, it's gonna impact our revenue, you know, our numbers are missed, all of that is, and you're like, it's not like I'm just fired. I feel like I'm screwed for my entire life. Like, there's no way from there.
The rest of your career.
That's it. Like, I'm gonna be known now in the industry. But you know, we fixed that. The great thing, the team that was supporting us from the vendor side, from Engagement, they jumped on and they actually put in their ops team, their operations team to help us fix it. We had to revert, of course. We had to like unconvert, unmatch, like do huge manual effort, right? But we were on a lockstep with them. It took maybe 2-3 weeks for us to do that in batches, super manual effort, put a lot of people in it, all of the resources available from both sides. You know, and you can say, well, the tool sucked because it can't be just like this easy to like convert all. Like anyone can just click by mistake, right? But on the other hand, the team that supported you through this nightmare, you know, I appreciated them so much. They worked long hours. They worked through the nights. There was a lot of hand-holding there, right? And after that, I became a huge proponent of that tool. You know, I was talking about that tool everywhere, right? I was talking about their prospective customer with their prospective customers, because I think that's what sort of brings you in. A mess up can happen, you know, it can to anyone. We all made those mistakes with data, with tools, with teams. What takes you out of that issue and the team that you have around and the support that you get, I think that's what's incredible. And that's what I learned. You know, stay close to your vendors. You know, we're humans on both sides, right? So build that relationship. So first of all, I got really close with the team there and we fixed the issue. We also made changes to the product, you know, immediately right after that, we worked with their product team to make changes to the product to make it not so easy to convert all. And of course, like over those, while we were fixing it, like imagine like the level of the depth that you go into to learn like the entire infrastructure, the data structure of all of the tools of like doing and undoing. There's also Marketo involved, etc. So I learned tremendously. I feel like I like packed a year of experience easy into like those 2-3 weeks. You know, I think I had gray hair right after that, right? So, but and several more wrinkles, but it still haunts me to this day, though. Whenever everyone says, like, hey, we got this tool called Lean Data, and they can actually auto-convert. I'm like, no. Just, and my team knows that I'm like, never.
Yeah.
We would never auto-convert.
Yeah. I tell my kids all the time that, you know, the gray hairs come from them, but it's really the RevOps nightmares that bring it. And so taking a step back, I like to look. I'm a big proponent of moving fast and making mistakes, and so creating an environment where it's okay for people to make mistakes is a big thing for me. I talk a lot about two-way doors versus one-way doors, and you know, if it's a two-way door, you can go fast because you can always come back. But there's also one-way doors, and that send button is usually a one-way door, right? And so early on in my RevOps leadership career, we had just implemented outreach. We were actually an alpha customer for outreach. They had 5 or 6 customers, and so they still had some regulation compliance stuff that they're trying to put in, and there was no limit on how many emails someone could put into a cadence. And so this mistake actually has a hashtag, and it's called Colgate. Not the toothpaste, but I had a rep named Cole, and he was very ambitious, and we were non-territorially, we no territories, and so he could prospect anywhere in the country. And he got a hold of a list of about 15,000, not 1,500, 15,000 of our ICP potential customers. And he put them into a campaign in outreach. And we're not talking like 1 or 2 emails, 15 emails in a week.
Times 15,000.
Times 15,000. And there was just no governor on outreach at that point. And we literally broke the system. Like, he got locked out of every tool that happened. But I think we got probably like 7,000 or 8,000 unsubscribes and like complaints. And I mean, we're talking like can spam at, like all of these like regulatory things. People are just outraged. But then, so we talked to Cole, and he's just like, oh, they had no idea what he had just done. And this poor kid, like, this is his first job, and he's trying to make amends. So he starts reaching out to these customers, and it was just funny because these people in this group started to realize how big this was. And someone on LinkedIn creates the hashtag Colgate and puts it out there and is like, who else was affected? And this group starts to get going. And that's the only reason we found out how many people. This group ended up having over 10,000 members in it on LinkedIn. They made T-shirts and had them to order. Like, you could order, I was affected by Colgate. And so we actually started to spin it. We had him buy one of the T-shirts and like do an apology video and send it out on our socials and everything. And it was hilarious because, I mean, it had a big impact. We burned through a good amount of our ICP, and they weren't going to do business with us. But it turned into this viral moment that he got to kind of get the egg off his face and make amends. And so I like that, like, there's some things you can't come back from, but there's always a future, right? There's nothing that you're going to do that's just completely, career tanking, in my opinion.
Yeah, what you make of it, right?
Yeah, and I think it is important, exactly as you said, the differentiation between two-way door and one-way door decisions, but also the value that you'd get as a revenue operations professional to fail fast and learn and do it better the next time. You have to foster that, and you have to be willing to take those chances in order to make great strides. So I think even though we're talking about our own failures and things that have gone wrong in our career, we all learned lessons from them, and it made us all better leaders. And I'm sure individuals who are within RevOps as well, by failures, you learn a whole lot more than by the successes.
How do you balance, though? I agree with moving fast, right? And we, as RevOps, we do need to move fast. But how do you move fast and thoughtfully? Because I'm getting tired of making mistakes. When we move fast and we work very closely with our business applications team, we're on sprints every 2 weeks. We do a release, and pretty much every release is either process optimization or a new process or a new tool or a new something, right? And because we move so fast and we do off-sprint releases, so every week then, right, there's something that we, of course, need to train reps on. There's so many gaps. Like, we forget to train to communicate. We forget to think about some other things that are surrounding it, right? And I'm so tired of fixing the patches, and I'm like, I cannot say slow down because it's almost a fireable offense. You can't slow down, but can we move like more thoughtfully? And this is the challenge for me now. I know that there's probably going to be some room for mistakes, but how do I balance, moving fast, but also moving thoughtfully? Some mistakes I'm okay with, right? Okay. But some mistakes we just cannot. If it's something that impacts closing, reps cannot close the deal, Salesforce just hangs, right? Or there's a spinning wheel or something like that because of the process that you just rolled out. That I cannot afford, right? I think for me, it's, actually about differentiating. This is like a low risk thing.
Yeah.
It's fine to move fast on this, but this thing, if it touches billing, if it touches product, if it touches, closing and contracts, deal desk, I really want to slow down. I cannot say slow. Want to move thoughtfully on that one and think it through.
It's risk mitigation, right? Even at the low level risks, it's really trying to figure out what are the potential downfalls if this screws up, and knowing that in advance. The high risk things, I'm with you. Don't move as fast, right? These things are critical. It needs to go back to almost those one-way door decisions. If I ended up below a quarter or a year because of this thing failing, we really need to be thoughtful. And every single person that potentially is going to be impacted by it, whether it's internally or even our customers, you've got to take that all into consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Or push play on anything. So really it's about just being thoughtful and really mitigating and knowing your risk and knowing where you lie exposed and being ready for those things to go wrong, especially in a high risk environment, to be able to defend that.
Right. Like if you think about those high risk categories, right? Customer experience is just one of them. Like we made change to our product where we would, for our small business customers, we would show like a pop-up that their invoice is overdue. But then this pop-up was showing, I think, for all of the customers, and that you could not like click out of it. It was just like following you through the.
Pay us now.
That's a high risk, right? But so think through and test out thoughtfully and like break down those categories.
I think that's where enablement comes in as well. So you mentioned, if you're making continuous changes and they're coming fast and you need to train and might forget a communication step. If enablement isn't under RevOps, having a really close partnership with enablement and being in lockstep on those changes. And, if they need a lot of training, then maybe is the change you're putting in place like not a great user experience for your internal users. So thinking through that as well, but really partnering with enablement, having those steps, like for every change, okay, there's a communication, maybe there's just a micro learning, a 2-minute video that goes with it, and you're putting it in your enablement tool or your LMS, wherever. So so rather than just, oops, the change pops up and then the salesperson or marketing, whoever's using the tool is like, oh my gosh, like what is this? I think it's really important to have that process in place and just have that regular cadence and communication and just kind of all be on the same
So
page.
true.
And it's hard. Like it's really hard.
I feel
Especially if
like-
they're in another department.
I feel like we're entering this new era, right? For RevOps, we were disruptive for a very long time. We were, yes, move fast and fail and learn and move fast and fail. Now we're entering the era of, I feel like, being additive versus disruptive, right? Of course, it depends on the size of your org, where you are. But I would rather be additive than, go through, to your story, right? This is all about, like, it's not the tools, but it's, it's the relationships and it's the structure, it's the bottom line. It's so also high risk, right, category for us to make a mistake. So what I'm going to be focusing on in 2025 is, being additive versus disruptive and be more thoughtful.
If you're loving this episode so far, you'll love the team that brings it all together. Sweetfish is the video podcast agency behind the scenes, partnering with B2B brands to produce shows just like this one. Want to become a co-host of the next season of this show? Or maybe your marketing team is ready to launch a podcast of their own. Head to sweetfishmedia.com and connect with their team today. For this segment of the show, we discuss about some of the interesting data that the Sweetfish team has come up with behind the scenes. And today we're going to talk about some stats that come from the survey done by BoostUp that they published in 2024. And that report shows that 23% of RevOps practitioners cite poor process or alignment as their biggest challenge, what we had kind of just talked about, and 21% say data quality. Mm-hmm. And so, as you hear that, one, do we agree? Do we disagree? I think, Olga, what are your thoughts?
I think it's even more, not 21. I feel like it's 99, say data quality. Like, how is your guys' data quality?
What data quality? But that sounds like that's an oxymoron. Data quality.
Data quality. I mean, we're getting there, right? And we discussed about AI, right? And what's hot topic for 2025. We're getting there in terms of data quality. Again, what I'm always telling my leaders and my team, we're not Zoom info. I'm not in the business of data quality. What's the point of me having pristine data? The point is for me to define what data is important and then have that buttoned up. The rest, like if the city is spelled out incorrectly on a lead, I don't care. I don't. So it's about defining that, and then that's what you should be focused on. And then alignment. What I usually also like to say, alignment is our love language, and it starts from the very top, right? The philosophical alignment from the leadership on what RevOps is, and let us just run it. I'm all about RevOps therapy and mitigation, but I don't want to spend 80% of my time just like balancing this out, right? Because I still need to do my work. So let's all just agree that that's what RevOps is doing, right? Aligning on this, and you guys listen to me when I say, and you do what I say you to do.
Can we get rid of the KPI? I don't know if you guys have ever had this, the KPI of clean data.
Yes.
Like the most ambiguous, and I'm like, okay, yeah, every field in Salesforce is mandatory now. You did it to yourself.
Yeah, everything is a pick list.
Yep.
Also, it is really defining with your customer data you're collecting what's valuable, and also what's the risk. Like as he said, who cares if it's a wrong physical address? I'm not sending any mailers. Who cares if it's a bad email address? You can still send a lead and get a bounce back, and then it gives you the ability then to go to that customer and try to clarify that, right? So really being clear on what value there is in chasing down perfect data. You don't need it to sell, to market, to CS. Is it perfect if you do land in that state? Great, yes. But no one's going to get there. No one is going to get there. And you're going to spend so much time, effort, and energy. And the opportunity cost of chasing that to have perfect data is just not needed. And I've seen that in big organizations. I've seen them in small organizations. I also think, though, as I think about revenue operations, two of those foundational elements for me really are data. Data in some capacity. I'm really trusting that data that's there, that's populated in your systems, that you're collecting through your processes, and eventually you're reporting on. Then I think related to that is process. If you don't know your end-to-end process and you don't have the ability to span the entire go-to-market space, know from start to finish what your processes are, and you have stakeholders and leadership that agree with that, you got nothing to build on. And all of these higher value functions that RevOps should be playing, you're going to continually be mired in trying to chase a process and define a process and have decent quality in order for you to do your jobs. You can't get to things like pipeline health and customer retention and churn avoidance and cross-sell, upsell if you're spinning constantly and trying to figure out what your process is and what quality your data is.
I think it does start with process. So if you don't have a good foundational customer journey map that defines every stage, what is the exit criteria, that it's impossible to align the data correctly and understand what the data means. And, alignment's a big word and it's a buzzword and everything like that. But I mean, executive alignment is important, but having that process before you start trying to report on things. Because if you don't have alignment with the process, the data is going to be ugly. It's not going to make any sense. And, if you're dealing with different departments, but let's face it, we all are. Like, not everybody's in a perfect world where everything lives under RevOps and RevOps has full control. So you have to really do the due diligence and go to every department, marketing. Okay, so what are the funnel stages, right? And then what is, how are we going to do an MQL to SQL to SQO, and what is the criteria? Because that's how we're going to measure the data. So I would argue those 2 points they're not even correlated, it's causation.
Yep.
So if you have bad process or no process, I can guarantee you your data is going to suck.
Absolutely.
Yep. And in the vein of this episode, RevOps horror stories, I'll share one where, yes, I agree that data quality is kind of the unicorn you're always chasing, but I'll share a story of when kind of the base level is really important. I came into an organization and I was brand new to the organization, and within the first 2 or 3 days, every single one of our opportunities got disassociated from the account. So complete history of opportunities. We're talking probably 2,000 plus opportunities, newer company, that no longer were associated to the account. So we could not tell what account that revenue went to or anything. And I come in, I'm like, okay, well, we'll just go to opportunity history. It wasn't turned on in Salesforce. Okay, we'll go to the names of the accounts that are in the opportunity name. Oh no, it was just the product. And so I had 1,000 plus opportunities that were called, like account. It wasn't even the name of the account. It was like account add-on. And we had to nuke the system. I had to get a team to go through paper contracts of 2,000 plus contracts over 3 years and then reinsert them into Salesforce, or just not have any historical data. So the base level of process of naming conventions, standard operating procedures, that increases your ability to have good data.
You guys add account names into your opportunity naming convention, just like number one thing you need to do.
Right? If you learn nothing else, but
Just do that.
yeah. So it's crazy. There's so many horror stories, so many things that can happen. But I think that we kind of come back to the theme of what we've been talking about throughout the day, is that it's okay to make a mistake and you can come back from it. You just need to know, hey, all is not lost, and throw up your hands and completely quit. And so as you're out there being RevOps professionals, pushing those doors, those two-way and one-way doors, move fast, make mistakes, but learn from those mistakes and use them to propel your career. If you love seeing our bright, shiny faces on video or hearing our voices in your AirPods on a run, I'm pretty sure you'll want us in your inbox too. Well, you're in luck, because we also have a newsletter. Every other week, we cover the best research in RevOps and distill it into actionable insights you can bring to your work. Just go to RevOpsCircle.com and sign up today. Until then, keep your brains sharp and your circles wide. We're out.